From a man who had a flaming arrow shot through his throat by his own fiancée on live television, to a man sealed inside a coffin and dropped onto a bed of spears.
No!
These are the most terrifying moments in America's Got Talent history. Starting with Ryan Stock and his fiancée Amber Lynn Walker from season 11, who had been practicing one stunt for 3 months straight, 10 times a day. Amber Lynn would fire a flaming crossbow bolt at a target Ryan held in his mouth, but the laser scope somehow slipped off the arrow mid-flight and sent it straight into his neck. She just shot her fiancé in the throat on live television, and Ryan confirmed afterward that if it had hit differently, it would have gone clean through and most likely killed him. Nick and Simon called it the most stressful thing they'd seen in over a decade on the show. At least that was an accident. This next one wasn't. A nearly blind man who chose to add a blindfold and fire to an act his own doctors told him not to do at all. Mary and Tice Nielsen were a merry trapeze duo from season 13. What made their act even more dangerous is that Tice had a progressive eye disease.
The disease I have makes my corneas distorted.
Doctors had told him not to do the act at all, but Tice didn't listen. Instead, he added 2 new elements they had never tried in front of anyone before: fire on the stage below them and a blindfold. Mary fell straight toward the flames below, but luckily she hit the safety mat and stood up on her own. That was a horrific sight, but she was okay. In fact, these two came back the very next round and did the exact same trick again, successfully. Now that's a close call, but this next guy didn't even make it to his first trick before hitting the floor. Primitivo Montoya was a utility worker from Denver who decided the AGT audition stage was the right place to attempt a freestyle cartwheel. It wasn't the right place. Piers Morgan had already buzzed him. The performance was going nowhere, but Primitivo decided at that exact moment to launch himself into a cartwheel that sent him clean off the edge of the stage. He crashed several feet below and somehow got back up. He climbed back up on stage to try again, at which point Howie Mandel hit both his own buzzer and Sharon Osbourne's buzzer at the same time, just to make it stop. If that fall made your stomach drop, this next one is from 18 feet up. Uzier Novruzov was a ladder acrobat from season 10 who had made it all the way to the semifinals on the strength of one of the most death-defying acts the show had ever seen. His final trick was balancing on the very top of an 18-foot freestanding ladder, the highest he'd ever gone. But guess what happened next? Yep. He fell. Uzier hit the stage and laid still for a moment that felt much longer than it was. But then he stood up and begged the judges for 90 more seconds to try the trick again. They didn't let him.
Honestly, I could have died on that trip.
But Uzier still made the finals. America probably voted him through out of sheer pity and respect. A creepy magician named Klekentos walked onto the season 16 stage and immediately made the room feel uncomfortable. He asked Heidi Klum to reach her hand into a dark box and pull out a piece of paper. Heidi hesitated, but eventually did it, clearly nervous about what might be inside. Next, Sofia Vergara was asked to drop several ink spots on the paper to create a random ink blot.
3, 4, 5.
Kleck then asked Terry Crews what the shape looked like.
Interpretation.
but I will ask.
Terry stared at it for a moment and said the word nobody wanted to hear. A spider.
A spider.
Kleck then slowly opened the same box Heidi had just put her hand into, and guess what was inside? A massive live tarantula.
Oh my God.
The judges jumped back in shock as the spider crawled around. Heidi had just stuck her bare hand into that box. The paper she pulled out, the magician knew exactly what was in there with it. She didn't. But if you still have any faith left in this show's safety protocols, this next act will finish it off. Demian Aditya was considered one of the season 12 favorites to win. He had already buried himself alive under 900 pounds of sand in his audition.
I will be locked up from ankles, wrists, and neck with only fragile cover above me. I have 2 minutes to escape before 900 pounds of sand above that crushed the cover and buried me alive.
Now, for the quarterfinals, he was about to perform an even more dangerous act, something he called the death drop. What makes this even more terrifying is that the last guy to attempt this act died.
I saw this on the internet. The guy who did this.
Demian would climb into a wooden coffin and have his hands locked in handcuffs. The coffin would then be nailed shut and lifted high above the stage. A blowtorch would slowly burn through the rope holding it up. When the rope finally snapped, the coffin would drop straight down and smash open on spears waiting below. Unfortunately, he couldn't get out in time, and the coffin fell straight down into the spears. No! The judges watched in complete shock. Host Tyra Banks came out and explained there had been a technical problem that was not Demian's fault. Nobody knew if he was alive inside that coffin until he showed up smiling behind them. But that still doesn't beat throwing knives at your partner on stage. Deadly Games were a husband and wife knife-throwing duo from season 11. Alfredo threw, Anna stood in the way. That was the act. For their AGT Champions final performance, Alfredo started with shooting an arrow at an apple balanced on Anna's head. If that's terrifying to you, it gets worse. Next, Anna would be spinning on a rotating frame with blades landing around her. And this guy still wasn't done. He decided he should shoot at his wife with a crossbow next. All of that and nobody got hurt. This next man wasn't so lucky though. In 2018, a strange and goofy Fratelli Rossi walked onto the stage.
Do for a living?
Oh, I'm nothing.
He was here to dazzle the judges with his dance routine.
Maneuvers for you guys.
Dancing!
Yeah.
Nobody was ready for what came next. He was bouncing and shuffling around the stage when things suddenly went very wrong. While dancing near the edge of the stage, he lost his balance, slipped, and fell straight off the front of the stage.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh my God! No!
All of that was horrifying to watch, but every single person you've seen so far walked away. These 5 people didn't. Dr. Brandon Rogers was a 29-year-old doctor who had spent years helping people in hospitals. But singing was his true passion.
I'm Brandon Rogers. I am a doctor, actually.
When he performed his audition, the judges were stunned. His voice was powerful, emotional, and easily one of the strongest auditions of the season. It looked like the start of an incredible AGT journey. But sadly, it never continued. On June 10, 2017, just weeks after filming the audition, Brandon was in a car on the way to a family event when the driver reportedly fell asleep at the wheel. The crash left Brandon critically injured and he passed away in the hospital the next day. He was only 29 years old. Now Brandon never made it past the audition, But this next contestant did, and the years after the show are what took her. Skylar Hicks was 14 years old when she walked onto the season 8 stage in 2013 and sang an original song she had written after her father died. She got 4 yeses. But after the show, she struggled with mental health issues and substance abuse. 2 missing persons reports were filed by her family in the years that followed. And on December 6, 2021, she was found dead at a friend's house in South Carolina. She was 23 years old. Skylar competed and left. This next man didn't sing, he didn't dance, he built things that fell apart for a living, and somehow that's what people remember most. Tim Fort built a big chain reaction machine out of thousands of tongue depressors and popsicle sticks and then set them off.
Oh yeah, sort of a living. I'm the kinetic king.
He called himself the great purveyor of chain reaction gadgets in this or the 17 known universes. He had a degree in aerospace engineering from the University of Minnesota and a membership in Mensa. Tim made it all the way to the semifinals of Season 6 before what he later called the greatest kinetic disaster of all time. On March 15, 2016, Tim Fort died in New Hope, Minnesota after suffering a series of strokes. He was 51 years old. His brother said appearing on AGT was probably the highest point of his life. Now Tim built things for a living. This next man won the whole show and still couldn't outrun what came for him. Neil E. Boyd was a 32-year-old insurance salesman from Sikeston, Missouri, when he walked onto the Season 3 stage in 2008 and opened his mouth. Opera came out. He won the entire season and took home the $1 million. After that, he performed for 4 U.S. presidents. His hometown declared October Neil E. Boyd Month. But then his health began to fail. In 2017, he blacked out at the wheel, crashed into 2 trees, and shattered bones in his hip and legs. He spent the next year barely able to stand. On June 10, 2018, Neil E. Boyd died at his mother's house in Missouri. Heart, kidney, and liver failure. He was 42 years old. He had been planning a 3rd album from 2019. Now, Neil won everything this show had to offer. But nothing on this list, not the arrows, not the falls, not the coffins, hit quite like this last one. Jane Marcheski walked onto the Season 16 stage under the name Nightbirdie and told the judges, before singing a single note, that she had cancer in her lungs, her spine, and her liver. She had a 2% chance of survival.
Last time I checked, I had some cancer in my lungs, my spine, and my liver.
Once she started singing, she was so good that Simon hit the golden buzzer. 2 months later, she was gone. She was 31. But what makes Jane's story linger longer than any other in this video is what she said before she sang a single note. She stood on that stage. 2% chance of survival, cancer in her lungs, her spine, and her liver, and told the judges it's important that everyone knows she's so much more than the bad things that's happened to her.
It's important that everyone knows I'm so much more than the bad things that happen.
Simon hit the golden buzzer. The audience gave her a standing ovation. The show goes on. The stage gets filled by someone new. But every so often, the person standing on it is carrying something nobody in that audience can fully see. Jane was, and the world almost missed it.